Ooh, live. Okay, it's been a while since I've been on YouTube. Hopefully everyone is doing well since I last made videos. It's been about 6 months, I think. I just wanted to make a quick video to discuss what I've been up to, my job and my side projects. And you know what? You can come on here and ask some questions. If you are watching this and you have any questions, you're learning development, software development, trying to teach yourself how to become a web developer, um, throw some questions down below. I've been through that whole gamut of going from knowing nothing to getting a job, and I've now been working in web development for 2 years. And there's tons of things that I've learned along the way, and maybe some information that I'll be able to pass on to you that might help. But yeah, just a quick update. I was making videos pretty regularly for a couple videos a week there for a few months, and now I had to take some time off. Oh, look, we got a hey. I don't know how to four Cruels. I'm not sure how to say your name. Sorry about that. But what am I working on now? Yeah, so I am in a new job, and this job has been very hard. And I don't mind saying so. And I know one of my colleagues actually checks out my videos sometimes. So I'll be honest, but I won't badmouth anyone. Not that there's anything bad to say, but really, new company I'm at. It's a Rails shop. I'd say it's still in the startup phase, although it is profitable. It was acquired by ConvertKit or Kit in America, which is a pretty well-known Rails company. But lots of development, fast development, lots of new features coming along. And as a developer there, you just constantly got to be producing new features. And the way we work is in these very short cycles under ShapeUp, though the way we've been working under ShapeUp is not really the true way that ShapeUp is organized or structured to be, which makes it harder. I won't go into details necessarily on that, but we have to produce brand new feature, big feature, every 4 weeks now, and it's a lot of work because it's not just a small thing like adding a button or anything like that, but it's just full like big features that you got to figure out from the ground up how you're going to implement, and then adding on top of that being new to the code base, being new to their style of coding, not understanding the product very well, having to learn that, and then jumping right in. There's not really much of a warm-up period. It's pretty much jump in and start producing. So that's been really hard, like tough. The toughest job I've ever had for sure. Toughest coding job, obviously, by far. And I've had lots of jobs in my past career and stuff, and this has been, I'd say, one of the more stressful jobs. But the flip side of that is I'm learning a ton. I've leveled up my software understanding, Rails understanding a lot in the last 6 months, which is a really good thing to see. And sometimes you gotta. I can't think of a good analogy. Something about sharpening swords and fighting fires. I don't know, but when you really need to learn something, you just got to get stuck in and do it the hard way, I think. Smooth seas don't make good sailors. There's an analogy. Sorry, I'm just looking at the comments here. Yeah. Kit did just do a rebrand. They changed the name from ConvertKit to Kit, and I think their logo is actually pretty cool. I like it. And yeah, they own the company that I'm at right now. It's called Sparkloop, which is like a newsletter platform. But yeah, I won't talk too much about where I'm working on those kind of details specifically, but it's good stuff. How many roles have I had so far as a dev? So, including my internship, this will be my third role. So, I've only been a developer for 2 years. Is that true? Yeah, 2 years. And 9 or 8 months of that, I was at FreshBooks in Canada, which is a Canadian company. It's like it's like QuickBooks. It's kind of but an easier version to use for smaller businesses. So that's kind of like accounting stuff. That was a really good introduction just in software and working in a big app and big teams and stuff in general. And the next place I was at was another Toronto-based company. This was much smaller. It was a B2B e-commerce company, and that was a Ruby on Rails shop. Fantastic team. Really liked working there. Product was cool as well. The challenges I had there that it felt a bit more like a lifestyle business. There wasn't really much growth planned, and there was a lot of bottlenecks in getting my code reviewed, and things were very slow, which in hindsight is kind of a nice thing because you're not stressed, but at the same time, you're not learning a ton. And at this stage in my career, I prioritize learning over sort of low stress, let's say. Though the place I'm at now, I would say sometimes the stress is high enough that I kind of, at times, I'll be honest, I'm like, shit, did I make the right decision? But, I think all in all, I certainly did. I have zero regrets in the switch. Yeah, so you're an accountant, dev as a hobby. But yeah, well, somewhere like FreshBooks, you'd be a really good hire because, well, I mean, you know the domain, right? And that's half the battle as a software developer, I think, is understanding the domain well enough that when you go to a new company, maybe you don't know the domain when you get there, but being able to understand new domains is such an important skill set to have, because the better your domain knowledge, the better your understanding of architecture, or at least how to architect something in a way that makes sense. So yeah, that as an side note, you'd probably like working somewhere like FreshBooks. Yeah, so old job was great. Wanted something new, wanted a bit more of a challenge, and definitely got a challenge in that. And the new job has been very hard, but learning a lot and no regrets. Yeah, so in my current role, I'm using Ruby, Ruby on Rails. It's a complete Ruby on Rails app. There's it's the monolith. It's Rails is serving the back end and the front end. We're using Stimulus for JavaScript, as well as Hotwire for the dynamic pages. So it really is just a through and through Rails app, and then it's got a lot of background jobs to run stuff asynchronously, so slowing down user experience. And then on the data side of things, it's a Postgres database, but there's also another database called ClickHouse, which I've only just started really using, but it's a much faster querying database. And I think it's write only, you can't update, but it's way quicker than Postgres. So you can query tons of data with ClickHouse way quicker. So that's been cool to learn about. Yeah, so I was at Rails World. That's another cool thing I can talk about briefly. I'll make a separate video on that, I think. But Rails World is, I don't think it's the conference for Ruby on Rails, but it's certainly one of the conferences for Ruby on Rails. Depends who you talk to. It is the Rails Foundation, which is kind of headed by DHH and 37 Signals and the rest of it. It's through the Rails Foundation that this conference is run. So I think it is the Rails conference now. I think this was the second year that they've done it, and that was in Toronto. That was an amazing experience. Definitely recommend anyone who gets a chance to go to a developer conference, check it out. You're going to meet so many people. The cool thing about these conferences is, especially a bigger one like this, there was like 1,000 people from 56 different countries, all crammed into one place, and you just got to meet so many new people. And the talks were amazing. But what I really loved about it was the hallway track, and the hallway track is essentially that you're hanging out in the hallway, just talking to people, meeting people. I skipped quite a lot of the talks because they're posted later on YouTube, but I figured I can go and watch these on YouTube later if I need to. I'm not going to miss out on that content, but there's no way I'm going to get to talk to this many Rails developers in one place until the next conference. So I valued kind of the networking and meeting people way more than that. Got another question here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is Ruby? Well, I guess depends. Hard is very subjective. What are you comparing it to? I mean, the most common language I think most people know is JavaScript. The concepts are going to be the same. So you've got to have that foundational understanding of either JavaScript or any language that you're using. You've got to understand the foundations, as well as how that works in terms of web development and the web. Once you have that foundation down, I think it becomes more about not how hard is the language, but how pleasing is the language to work in. And Ruby, for me, is a very pleasing language to work in because it reads a lot like English. It allows you to construct code that kind of reads like a bit more like a story. There's no semicolons. There's very few brackets. It's very clean, and it's very easy to review and read compared to other languages. I write JavaScript now and then. I don't write a ton of it in this job that I'm at right now. And whenever I go back to writing it, it feels very sort of verbose. and a little clunky. I mean, I like JavaScript, but I much prefer Ruby for, being able to write in Ruby on Rails. So yeah, I mean, any programming language you learn is going to be hard at first because you have to understand the fundamentals and those basic concepts and learn how the web works in general. That's going to be hard, whatever you learn. Some languages are going to be easier than others. And if you were going to learn a language, I mean, you have to learn JavaScript, I think, at least if you want to be a full stack developer or a front end developer. But anyone who works in the web, generally, you've got to learn JavaScript. Then I would go to, Python is amazing as well. My first job was in Python, using Python and Flask was the framework, and also Django, and a ton of JavaScript. Python it's different to Ruby, but it is also very similar in terms of its syntax. It's very clean, and it's easier to read. But I still think Ruby wins the cleanliness competition. How often do you guys in the real world make use of AI? I think by real world you mean like the dev world, like as a professional paid software developer. I think it's going to vary by developer. Some people really like using AI, some not so much. And I think it really depends on what you're doing. If you're writing a lot of new features that have a lot of sections in it that are kind of boilerplate, like writing forms or basic controllers, then something like GitHub Copilot, I think, is going to be very useful to just write that stuff quickly. And for myself, I don't use Copilot. I still prefer to have to think about what I'm going to write because I think it's just going to reinforce that learning for me much quicker. So that it is second nature, that if I do want to use something like Copilot in the future, then it's suggestions. I can very quickly determine, like, that's what I want, that's what I don't want. A lot of people have also kind of counter argument to Copilot where they started using it, and for certain boilerplate things it is useful and they like it, but for other things it actually gets in your way and it can actually slow you down because it starts suggesting things that are incorrect, that you have to, it might take you down paths that you may not have otherwise thought of, that are not great paths, and I think it can waste people's time in that perspective. I really like ChatGPT just for, I don't have any plugins, it's not in my IDE or anything like that. I just go to the OpenAI website and I ask ChatGPT some questions. It's fantastic for diving into new concepts or technologies where you have to sort of, there's that like step function of understanding enough so that you can actually use something. It's great at getting you up that and over that step, I find. And also there may be little questions where there's a small snippet of code seeing like, I think it's doing this, but if I'm under pressure, I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what it's doing. I'll throw into GPT just for a kind of a second set of AIs on that code, just to be like, oh, okay, yeah, that is kind of what I was thinking, or if it's completely different, then I may have learned something new. But I find myself using ChatGPT less and less as I learn more and more, which I think is a good thing. So yeah. Yeah, so you're saying you agree. I feel it takes the fun out of coding. Yeah, it certainly can. Problem solving is definitely enjoyable. When you get into the professional setting, time is also a consideration. So, companies want you to, depends on the company and the culture, but some companies want you to be producing a lot, and they value productivity over anything else. And when you're in that kind of situation, sometimes it might be easier to just rely on AI to write something quickly. I haven't tried it. I write my own code just because if I start leaning on AI too much, I feel like I might not level up as fast or as quickly. I feel like in the past I have made mistakes where I've relied on ChatGPT's answers a little too much, and it gives me shitty code, really bad code, which I've overlooked some poor details in. And then when it comes to review on my pull request, someone says, "Oh, what's this?" Or "We should do this another way." And I'm like, "Oh, of course, that's just terrible code," because ChatGPT does produce terrible code quite often as well. Am I a senior? No, no, I'm far from senior. So I would consider myself, well, what I'm in now is a mid-level role. So I was an intern for 8 months, and then in Python, and then got a job in Ruby on Rails. I was there for a year, and I'd say I leveled up out of junior pretty quickly, just because I had to. Um, the second job that I got, it was a very small team. There was the founding dev, but he was busy on other stuff. There was a co-founding dev who was doing support, and then there was me who was just producing new features. So I had to. I don't think a junior would have done very well in that role. So I just don't think I was a junior at that point, though I was at times making junior mistakes. And one stupid mistake I made that I will never forget is I was doing some authentication stuff, um, and we were doing two-factor authentication where you enable it and you're already logged in or authenticated. We prompted for a password just to make sure that that user was actually enabling 2FA on their own account. And I sent that password to the backend with a GET request, which was just so dumb, because GET requests are not encrypted or anything like that. I mean, it's just a plain password being sent. So I learned very quickly not to do that. So, I would consider that a junior mistake. But in general, no, I'm a mid-level role at this company that I'm at now, and kind of operating in that range. And I think it's going to be another couple of years at mid-level before I'd ever feel comfortable calling myself a senior. Just because the more I get into it, the more I understand how much more seniors know and have just seen lots of iterations of things and have developed enough patterns and experience that I just don't have yet, in order to call myself a senior. Because when you're a senior, you need to be also not just good at writing the day-to-day code, but also making those architectural and technological decisions and having the pros and cons of each, and knowing how to make a rational decision. So yeah, exactly. What was I thinking saying a GET request? I have no idea. I mean, that was a stupid mistake, right? So you learn these things, and I don't mind putting it out there because sometimes you make dumb mistakes, and I think it's going to happen to everyone where you, especially when you're in your first job or two, where you're gonna make dumb mistakes, and people are going to see it, and they're going to say, "What the hell is this?" And you're going to feel like an absolute idiot. So it's going to happen. But that's how you learn. That's how you learn. As long as the people around you are supportive enough to help you learn, then that's great. And to be honest, that's the whole point of the pull request reviews, right? Is to catch those errors. Hopefully not too many errors, but that's why we review each other's code. So yeah. Any other questions? Because this is getting on to 20 minutes long, and I'll wrap it up pretty soon here. But do I still maintain my open source project? Oh yeah, that's a really good question, and that's something I wanted to talk about. So yes, I do. I'm still I'd say maintaining. We're still in the MVP building stage, so it feels more like the building stage than the maintaining stage. But yeah, we've come far enough along that we're going to be launching pretty soon. We've got a guy who's working on deploying to Azure, on one of their cloud servers. That's something I need to learn about, but he's taking that task on. We've got a lot of contributions, especially this month because it's Hacktoberfest. And for anyone who's unaware, the project it's a pet rescue platform that enables any small organization around the world that does pet rescue and adoptions to basically sign up on this app, and then they get their own website where they can post all of their pets, and people can sign up, log in, and apply to adopt for pets and enter in all their information. And there's a full backend on it as well that allows them to manage all their pets, their adoptions, their fosters, their staff, their fosterers, and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool to just see where it's come from zero, from just an idea into where it's almost to MVP now. And we've got almost 100 contributors on that project now, which is really cool to be able to work with that many people around the world on something that I basically created from nothing as a complete noob developer. So yeah, that's still going. The name of that now is Homeward Tales is what we're calling it. It's kind of a play on Homeward Bound, which is, I think, was a movie about some dogs trying to get home. So yeah, we call it Homeward Tales. I'll throw the link to that project down in the description for this video as well. If anyone wants to check it out, they can. And if you're a Ruby on Rails developer or you want to learn Ruby on Rails, it would be you're more than welcome to fork that repo, have a play around, and contribute some code if you want to. Okay, I think I'm going to sign off there because this is 20 minutes long. But it's good to be back, and I want to start making more videos again now that I'm settling down. Although we are having a little girl in about, well, who knows, the next 1 to 4 weeks. And I already have a 2.5-year-old, so times are going to be busy. Times are going to be busy. But I will certainly try my best to make some videos. Well, have a good night. And, well, if you have any questions, throw them down below, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.